Namaste. Pranams, welcome to all of you. We're here at Sankat Mochan Hanuman Temple, and this will be a conversation, talk, some time for discussion, question and answer. And the topic tonight is going to focus on puja and yagya, and specifically as relates to the Aradhana ceremony that we are celebrating tomorrow morning. And the Aradhana ceremony is the second annual ceremony that we're doing in honor of our Guru, Baba Haridas. So I think pretty much all of you realize Babaji left his body September 25th in 2018. So, and there's an interesting timing element to his departure from his physical form. And it has to do with time in the lunar calendar in India called Pitru Paksha. And this is a time that is in late August all the way up into late September. And it's particularly the time, a 16-day period, for honoring ancestors, our departed loved ones who we take a special effort and attention to honor them and do performance of ceremony. A Shraddh ceremony is common, a shorter form of the Shraddh ceremony from what is done right after the death. But it's an annual event, and throughout India it's for many, many people, millions of people, it's a time where the Shraddh ceremony is done in this abbreviated form to honor all the ancestors and try to help to relieve and alleviate any of the residual karmas and attachments on both sides. It's felt that our attachment to our loved ones who've left their body, that creates this bond that might not enable their liberation. So we want to acknowledge that we have a part to play in totally releasing that loved one so that they can go on in their own journey toward liberation, not be held back by any of our own need for them and love for them and so forth. So it can be a very beneficial, positive love that we have for them, but we have to release and let them go. There's in a Shraddh ceremony, one of the beautiful elements to it is that for the person who is performing the ceremony, they make and wear a grass ring in the course of the ceremony. Now, grass is symbolic of such a vitality of life when it's green and very, very active. And so we weave a ring, and the person wears that ring, and that represents that worldly relationship that the individual has with that loved one who's left their body. But that grass ring has such a beautiful vitality in that green color, but it's a very, very temporary symbol. So grass is, of course, very ephemeral. It's going to be gone in no time. So while a life might be very long-lived, it's really gone in an instant. So the grass ring is a very important element to that, and you offer that as one of the last offerings, and you try to acknowledge and release that soul. Now, in terms of our Guru, Baba Haridas, leaving his body during that time, it was right after the full moon, the day after the full moon. So today is the full moon of Pitru Paksha, this time period that begins the Shraddh, 16 days of it. And so today is the full moon. And then tomorrow, being the day after, that's related to the day that Babaji left his body, which in 2018, as I said, was September 25th. So this idea of the lunar calendar is where we look to do the important ceremonies, because that element, the principles in nature, the cosmic principles, are aligned perfectly according to the lunar calendar. So many important ceremonies are done on full moon, like Guru Purnima that we just held. And then this beginning of Pitru Paksha, it begins on the full moon and goes for 16 days. So we were told when Babaji left his body at that time that it is a very auspicious time for one to leave their body. As frequently as I say, every year one might do a Shraddha ceremony for a loved one. But when someone leaves their body during that time period, the Shraddha can be done just once, and then that covers it. It's like forever that has been taken care of. So, and in that's what happened, of course, in Babaji's case. His whole period of Shraddha took place during that 16-day period. So the Aradhana ceremony becomes a way to honor. Aradhana means to honor, to praise, to worship. So it could be a deity, it can be a saint. So that Aradhana ceremony can be done on that day that that high saint or that deity is said to have been incarnated. So in that case, or left their body. So in that case, we are doing this Aradhana ceremony for Babaji on that lunar cycle. So tomorrow is the second one that we are doing for him in that way. So in our relationship with Babaji here at Mount Madonna Center, this temple got established. We opened it actually in 2003. But from about the year 2000, Babaji spent a huge amount of time helping to build and develop this site. And of course it had begun as our temple site 20-some years before that. This got initiated, this very site, with 4 fire ceremonies to be our temple environment, right when we first moved on this property in 1978. He saw this site and he saw that it had a particular quality about it. And he brought it to life by teaching us all these rituals, the fire ceremony, the puja, and so forth, and coming here as a way of both empowering this whole property and specifically this site. So this particular area we're standing on is really like the heart of the temple area. So the heart is what we would call the Vedi here. So the Vedi has a yantra on it. And the whole temple is also a form of yantra. The whole site is an instrument. Yantra means instrument. So this particular Vedi has a mandala yantra that's been painted in sand, colored sand, and it is called Yantra Raj. So this will be the instrument that will facilitate the honoring ceremony that we do for Babaji, the puja and the yagya. So I want to say a little bit about the whole site also, in that, as I mentioned, this is really the heart. And so this is the place in us, also the heart is the place in us where we can leave the mind, the ego, the attachment, and bring it into the heart, which is really that place of surrender, that place of unity with the self. The scriptures, the Upanishads, speak of the heart being like a hidden cave, hridayam, the spiritual heart this is. So it's this place that we can let the mind get carried down into it and meditate there and abide there and dissolve the mind in that presence that's there in this subtle heart, spiritual heart. So this is the place that we come and we lay down our mind, our ego, and we merge in that heart principle. So I'll say the process of the puja and the yagya and how it facilitates that. But at one level, this is the heart here of the temple site. The whole layout of the temple is to really mimic the cosmic, the whole macrocosm, the universe. So in all the different directions, and the temple on the inside is considered the womb chamber. So this is the place where divine consciousness is coming and giving birth to the divine presence as manifest in creation. In this temple, Sankat Mochan Hanuman. So this is the place where there's a yantra, again, like this, in the ceiling, Sri Yantra, which represents the Divine Mother. All potentialities that can ever be created are represented by the Sri Yantra. So being there in the crown of the temple. So, and then in there is this, what's called the womb chamber, the Garbha Griha, and that's where Hanumanji is. So it represents this place where divine consciousness is manifesting in the creation, and manifesting as, in this case, Hanuman. So Babaji was very much a Hanuman Bhakta, and Hanuman, as is said in some scriptures, is the deity for this yuga time. So he's king of gods, as we hear in the Hanuman Chalisa. So this is the representation that we honor and have always honored here under Babaji's teachings and guidance. So and there's much in the symbolism of Hanuman and Ram and the story of the Ramayana and so forth that tells that story of our liberation through these particular deity forms. So the way we'll do the ceremony tomorrow, there will be the first part is puja or worship. So in a puja, you can say it's a form of dismemberment that the puja takes us through. So it's a process where we gather all these special equipages, and they all represent different aspects of our mind, our body, our senses, intellect, the heart. Everything that we are comprised of is represented by the various equipages that we bring to the ceremony. They're all offered in a sequence along with mantra and prayer. So, and the mantras become the subtle body of the yantra and the ceremony. And the yantra itself is the gross form. So, and it has a form of a deity it's representing, as I said, Yantra Raj, the king of yantras. And in the middle there's a bindu, which is a bija mantra, Hring. So this Hring mantra is a Shakti mantra, a goddess energy mantra for empowering and bringing alive that presence of the yantra. So this is both representing a microcosmic form, meaning you and I, and a macrocosmic form, what is the whole universe. And I'll go through the symbols in it and describe it as it relates to us and to the whole universe. So the puja that will be in the first part of the ceremony, as I mentioned, we have all these various equipages we'll use, and they're going to represent everything, all of our senses, and we'll offer them one by one. Some go right onto the yantra, some will go onto the altar, and we honor and acknowledge that we are not our sense of taste, we are not our sense of touch, smell, etc., through these beautiful different equipages, the flowers, the incense, the singing, and so forth. All of these things get offered one by one, and they become a way that we acknowledge and represent that this is not who I am. This is an instrument that's operating through this form. And we say, we surrender it, we give it over to the Spirit, to consciousness. So the first part of the ceremony is also accompanied with many mantras that are for purifying the subtle body. So they take us through a whole sequence, acknowledging all the different locations and energies in the body, doing mantra, applying hand mudra with it. The mudra is done with the hands and the fingers joined in different forms, joining certain fingers, and then applying on energy centers throughout the body, thereby purifying and awakening a subtle divine energy there. So theoretically, by the time you go through the whole puja like that, you have, what they would say is, you have divinized this whole form, this whole physical form and psychic form. So after the offerings of the puja, then we begin the yagya, the fire ceremony part. So the ceremony is done from this side, so from this north side. And you see that this yantra is laid out, and the Vedi is laid out with 3 lines on each side and open on this south side. So this is the place that the mantras flow into the fire and the yantra. So in this form, the bija in the middle, hring, is the seed energy of the Divine Mother, sometimes also called Bhuvaneshwari, so the goddess mother of the whole creation. So, and there's a triangle there that the bija mantra is situated in. And it is what's called a Shiva triangle. So it's an upward pointing blue triangle representing Shiva, a static form of divine consciousness. So blue also representing the color that's formless. And the hring, as you can see, is a Shakti color. It's in a bright red. So this is a very active, energized color. So this is the blue triangle of Shiva, is composed of 3 energies of consciousness, will, and matter in a very subtle form. So divine consciousness and divine energy of Shakti, of creative potential, and then a form principle. So those 3 energies are said to be in a static form. And then they're potentized by that Shakti energy of the Goddess Mother. So that static energy of Shiva will not manifest, will not operate, will not do anything until it is activated by that Shakti energy of the Goddess Mother. So, and it's situated within a red circle there. So this is, again, a power, Shakti energy that's going out from that bindu. And what is around it are 8 petals. So this is called the eightfold nature, or Ashtada Prakriti. So 8 forms of nature that give rise to all creation. So these 8 forms are petal shapes, but the petal shape is also indicative of the same 3 energies that a triangle is. So consciousness, will, and matter, and they're in an active, expressive form. So they're given that shape of a petal, and then with that bulge side, meaning that it's really an engaged, active, expansive quality that's in process there. So the 8 petals representing the energies of the consciousness, will, and matter, those 3 for each one. And then that they're representing the 5 elements that are the basis of all life forms: earth, water, fire, air, ether. and 3 aspects of mind. So this being the manas, the mind that operates the faculty of recording, faculty of mind that takes in all information. Manas, the ahamkar, which is the ego sense. Manas, ahamkar, and then chit, this, or buddhi, intellect form, this discriminative higher knowledge. So these 3 energies are represented by 3 of the petals and then the 5 elements. So those 8 forms are said to be the basis of all creation, of all life. So, and those 3 forms are what are going outward into the whole of creation. So you see there's a designation of each of them with that white line in between, that these are in a very pure form within the mandala there. But then they're going out and it's showing this square, this yellow square that it's all operating in. And that's indicating that that part of it is got a limit to it. The yellow color and the square form indicate that there is a limit to that kind of expansion. So there are also 4 gates. These are very, very important piece of it, part of it. So the symbolism here is that there in the heart is this divine energy, this pure energy of goddess presence and this Shiv energy of higher consciousness, which is inactive there. And then there it expands outward and then it gets expressed through the senses and those 3 aspects of mind. And those are all temporary. They're all going to have an ephemeral period of life. And it's going to be the struggle of life with all of its challenges and so forth and suffering that may come with it. So what this is saying though is that there in the heart, in the middle of it, in the middle of your being, there is this special presence, this special place, which is transcendental, which is beyond, which is not in that challenge of the temporary, ephemeral struggle of the ego. That's beyond that. So then there's 4 gates, as I say. So the gates have also, I want to highlight that they're part of this larger yantra that the whole middle section of the temple has here. And so this is a mandala in the middle here that is in stone that shows these same 4 gates. Now there's different ways you can look at this, but one way is that they represent what is called Purusharth. Purusharth is for the purpose of the self. So it's our life's purpose is the individual. There's the individual Purush and there's the divine transcendental Purush. So the Purusharth is this dharma that we have that is for the purpose of uniting us with the higher self. So, and it comes in some very, very practical ways. So the fullness of life is said to come when one is connected to all 4 of these gates. And as Babaji has indicated, and you see in some scriptures, that each of the gates can represent a portal of sorts to liberation. So, and during Guru Purnima Yagya time, when we were talking about the yantra at that time period, we were describing how one of the gates, we described a little bit about it. And not to take too much time, we couldn't go through all of them. But tonight I'll highlight at least one of them, because part of the process of these ceremonies is that they can seem so incredibly involved. There are so many facets to them, and so many equipages and so forth. And the ways that we try to find that we can express our urge to merge, you might say, this fundamental urge we have to unite with that which is peace, that which is truth, that which is love, that which is in the heart there, that is a total bliss type reality that everyone is really fundamentally estranged from and seeking. So the practical ways that these gates are describing for fulfilling the purpose of our life is dharma, arth, kam, and moksha. So there are 4 gates. So dharma is your duty. So the duty you have in life is a form of yagya. The duty you have in life, those qualities, characteristics that are your natural tendencies and capabilities, those are the path that can help to bring you to liberation. When they're manifest as fully expressed as you can live them, and they're in service of other. So that's the important piece in there also, this component of your surrendering that what you're serving is for the greater good, not for self, not just for individual. So I want to watch the time so we make some opportunity for any question and discussion about some of these things. But so as I was saying, I spent some time talking a little bit about this dharma, this form called dharma, the one gate, and told a little story of Babaji and how his dharma and how he was surrendered so fully to his dharma. And it was around his the idea of really of ritual, that where we learned from him in the early days that he came every Monday, Tuesday, or every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday for years and years and years. And when he first started to do that, we began to realize that he was so committed to it that no matter what and what his health was, he would come. And when he was sick, he even came. And when we asked him about that, you came even though you were sick, and why then you got sicker and so forth. And he just said, it is a ritual. And that was a really very, very profound thing for me to hear as I was in training for all of these kind of rituals. So what I learned in that is that his ritual was to come and serve this community and this development, this growth of the community, and serve anyone who wanted to come and study the teachings and practices of yoga. So this was to make a place for that, and he served that just to the nth degree. No matter what, he would come and do that. So that was his vow, his commitment, and it was a ritual. So very powerful to see it and witness it then to go on for many, many years, year after year after year, the way he was so surrendered to that. So I want to say a little bit about the second gate, which is Arati. And I'll say a little bit about it, but I want to also embed it in a story so you get a better sense of the context and the vastness of what each of these gates might really be. So, because when we say dharma, duty, your sense of duty, so it's hard to maybe get all the different nuances of what that might mean as a way of liberation. Similarly, artha is, in this case, it translates as wealth. So how does wealth become one of these gates to liberation? And this access points to this transcendental place in the heart. How does that work? How does wealth work? So you can answer it in a lot of different ways in a strictly worldly way. You can say, well, if you accumulate a lot of wealth and you use it to serve others, that in itself is a way of really surrendering the fruits of what you've gained, and others will benefit. So whether it be building hospitals or bridges or medical facilities and so forth, and all kinds of philanthropic things can be done with wealth, of course. And it may have the flip side of egoism with it also. You don't know, but there's so many ways that wealth needs to be really scrutinized. If you ask yourself, what is your wealth? And you think about what is your wealth, there's some really deep places you can go with that. we offer one such equipage in puja and yagya, and it's representing Sahasrara Chakra. It's a silver umbrella, and it's one of the last of the offerings. So when we offer that at the end, it's representing wealth. So it's saying that this Sahasrara Chakra, this crown chakra within us, which is the highest spiritual center in us, that is the highest wealth that we can ever be in tune with. So that becomes one very easy spiritual way to understand wealth, what wealth can be. So there's an interesting story about this that really, I think, highlights the diversity in different ways you can look at it. And this is about a samurai and a monk. So, great samurai warrior in Japan. And a great samurai warrior in Japan was really like a crown jewel for a kingdom. So, if a king had many powerful samurai warriors, that kingdom could really prosper, could really thrive. So they were seen as these really, really incredibly powerful presences to have in your kingdom, and a symbol, a great symbol of wealth, making sure that the kingdom could be stable, making sure that the kingdom could become protected in all cases and so forth. So there was one samurai who was extremely powerful and known throughout the whole land and respected among the whole population. So, and the samurai had the thought, there was a monk living in the mountains, and the monk was silent. He was quite old. He was living very, very remote area, didn't really engage with people. Occasionally people would go to see him and he might engage with them, but he lived this very, very reclusive life. But he was also considered in the kingdom to be a very, very high form of wealth for the kingdom also, because he had achieved some spiritual illumination. Greatly respected. So the samurai made the long trek and got up into the mountain. And he wanted to ask the monk the question, what is heaven and what is hell? So he made the trek and he got there. He came into the little hermitage area of a monk, and he saw that he was digging in a little garden over there. And he went close to make his presence known and waited. And the monk didn't acknowledge at all. After some time, he made a little noise and got closer, and the monk still didn't acknowledge. And finally, the monk did acknowledge. He looked up, and the samurai came over to him and said, I want to know what is heaven and what is hell. And the monk just looked at him and remained silent, just peered at him for a long time. And it began to irritate the samurai that he was being ignored. And he began to feel his energy kind of rising in him. And the monk continued to just look at him and peered at him. And then finally, after a long time, he said, I couldn't teach you anything. You're just a big lout. And the samurai felt his whole body stiffen, and he felt his hand go toward the hilt of his sword. And he began to feel a rage come up in him, just like white hot up his spine, as he looked at this monk and standing there in front of him. And he began to pull the sword out till his whole body was just like shaking. And he went to bring it down on the monk, and the monk said, that's hell. And the monk just peered at him, fearless. the samurai all of a sudden just collapsed in a pile in front of the monk. And the monk said, "That's heaven." So in that brief exchange, those few words, he told them, anger, violence, that is hell. That's what is hell. And surrender, that is heaven. So that's a form of wealth that is to be acknowledged. And that teaching of surrender, how to surrender the ego, how to fully surrender it. So dharma, arth, wealth, kam is desire, moksha is liberation. So there are all four of these gates that bring us into this relationship with the higher possibilities. And they're all things that are very natural in our life. The desires that we have, how do they become these tools that will facilitate our liberation? And liberation, what is liberation? What are its different forms? And how is it that we bring that about in our life? So, in the process of the puja and yagya tomorrow, one of the final things that we'll offer is a coconut. So after we've done the full puja, after we've done a seed mixture offering representing all of our potential actions, 108 rounds of mantra and so forth, then the final offering will be a coconut. The coconut represents the mind and the mind-body complex. So this whole 8-petaled representation that is what we see in the yantra. So the ego, the intellect, the mind, the senses, they're all represented there. So the coconut represents this false understanding, it is the form that represents the ego and all of its attendant expressions and experiences that we will have in life. So we take that coconut and the eye has been opened in it, and we offer ghee into it with mantra. And the ghee and the mantra are saying, as it's chanted, the ghee is representing the energy, the sperm energy, going into the ovum. And the mantra that's being chanted as it's poured in is saying that the fire is God, that the coconut is God, that the offerer is God, that the implement of offering, and that all the different equipages, they're all just God interacting with God. And that anyone who engages in that any relationship in life, by surrendering in that way, that they will be without the bondage of karmas, accumulated karmas from those actions. So, but it means surrendering the ego. So the coconut is the final offering that we do representing that. And that closes the offerings, and then closing prayers will happen. So it's quite an involved ceremony. It's going to take a little over 2 hours, about 2 hours tomorrow. As we go through it, it'll be easier to see the equipages and understand the symbolism of the individual ones. But this is hopefully to give you a little sense of some of the actions of what the puja and yagya are. And then experience is, of course, one of the best ways to get a deeper sense of it and meaning. So if people have any questions, we can take any questions for a few minutes, and then we're going to go right into the evening Arati right afterwards. So we'll welcome you to join and stay for that as well. So is there no questions at this point? Okay. We'll see if there's any priming of the pump there. So there's a question here. Let's see what.
And read it back after she said it.
Given the cultural
slower and I'll try to repeat it. Given the cultural framework and the stories,
how should we prepare to fully experience Aradhana tomorrow morning?
How shall we prepare to fully experience the Aradhana ceremony tomorrow morning? The most important thing you can do is just bring your presence to it without expectation, really, is to be in the experience of it. It's very challenging to try to convey all of the elements of what this is using just these virtual mediums that we're using right now. So the one thing is to say that the whole ceremony is taking place within you. Everything that we're doing here is said to be really mimicking what happens in our life, in our day-to-day. So all the possibilities of what we can do with our energies, with our senses, mind, intellect, etc., they're all represented by the activities in the ceremony. And the whole thing is summed up by being willing to surrender the fruit of our actions to God and let our life be that which is in service of the larger world community, and in that way serving God. So just being present and sitting in the flow of the ceremony as it goes on and trying to keep your awareness tuned into your own heart, because that's where it's going on. The fire and the Vedi, as I said, that's the heart of this area, and Yagya is what the place where Yagya really takes place is in the heart. That's where it has its real living form. So, yeah. Is there another? Yeah.
Are the 4 gates also a representation of the 4 directions? North, south, east, and west?
They are aligned in that way. Yes. Yeah, the north direction is toward Dharma, east, Arth, Kam, south, west, Moksha.
Are there any other stories on the other gates?
Yes, each one has a story that will help to kind of bring alive the nuances of it. But there isn't time to do them right now, given that we're starting Arati in a few minutes. But we will weave them into some future conversations about some of this. And perhaps in one presentation, just touch on all 4 of them together at the same time, so that you get the full sense of it. But it'll take a longer conversation than we have. Tonight we just wanted to try to give a context, a way for some of you who might not have ever participated in the Yagya to get some sense of what might happen tomorrow, and to see the site before it's got everything in it. And it'll be beautifully ornamented tomorrow, so you'll see it in its more dressed out form when we start tomorrow at 7:30.
There's a question about, what will we be chanting 108 rounds of tomorrow?
We will be chanting the Guru Gayatri mantra. So, Om Parabrahmane Vidmahe Guru Devaya Dhimahi Tanno Guru Prachodayat. Om. May we know the immense being in the Guru Dev. May that being guide and direct us in our life. Om. So we'll go over all of that also tomorrow, but it'll be embedded in several parts of the ceremony. It'll be both 108 times, and there'll be niyas, different ritual with hand mudras, embedding that mantra throughout the whole mind body. So in the course of other in other offerings. So it's really about bringing alive that Guru energy. And if you think about it, the one thing is, this is to honor Babaji, who was one of these very extremely rare beings, that it was so easy to see the gold, the essence gold, beautiful, powerful consciousness energy there. And then think, oh, you know, we've lost him. We've lost that beautiful form that we were attached to. And what he told us all along, of course, is that if you get attached to the physical form of the Guru, then when the Guru leaves the body, the game is up. And he always said that's not the way, that's not the idea of the Guru. To understand, it's like the principle of the gold and all the various ornaments that it can be made into. And they all fundamentally are just gold. The essential quality is gold. So that Guru energy hasn't gone anywhere. So that particular form that inhabited that beautiful, you know, that presence that was inhabiting Babaji, that we got to see and experience so close and palpably, that form is gone, but that Guru energy didn't go. It's present in all the teachings. It's present in all the practices and the meditations that we do. So always that gold is what you want to remember, is always there for us. And it's up to us to live as closely as we can to it, express it as closely as we can in our own life. We'll do one more, and then we have to stop for the evening Arati, but yes.
Can you please say a little about the representation of Amrit that is distributed at the end of the Yagya?
Say, I didn't hear one.
Could you please say a little about the representation of Amrit that is distributed at the end of Yagya?
Yeah, the Amrit that is distributed at the end of a ceremony, it's called Panchamrit, or 5 nectars. So fundamentally it's water, it's yogurt, it's ghee, it's milk, and it's a little bit of honey. So these 5 nectars, and really they become very potentized like that, in that they're, I did say yogurt, right? Yeah. So, but it becomes very potentized by virtue of the way it's concocted, the mixture coming together, and then the use for it in the ceremony. So, but very important elements for the final offering there. So, one of the prasad offerings, that is, it comes around. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to close off there, and we're going to start Arati in just a moment. And this evening we're going to do the Ganeshji Arati and Hanumanji Arati at the same time. So you'll be able to mostly just witness this one, although maybe from a distance you'll catch some of the Ganeshji Arati going on there. We'll start though in just a couple of minutes, and thank you for coming and joining tonight, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow, and on and on and on from there. Om. Jai Shri Ram. Jai Hanuman. Thank you. Hanuman ki jai. Uma Pati Mahadev ki jai. Ramapati Ramachandra ki jai. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namah. Om Shri Gurave Namah. Om Shri Sita Ramaya Namah. Om Shri Hanumate Namah. Om Sumukhascha Kadantascha Kapilo Gajakarnakaha Lambodarascha Vikato Vignanascha Vinayakaha Dhumraketur Ganadhyaksho Bhalachandra Gajanana Dvadashaitani Namani Yahapate Chunyadapi Vidyarambe Vivahe Cha Praveshe Nirgame Tatta Sangrame Sankate Chaiva Vignastasya Najayate Vignabali Kuthataya Shri Ganadipataye Namaha Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Abhinam Kurme Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Shuklam Varadaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarvavignopasantaye Labhaste Sham Jayaste Sham Kutaste Sham Parajaya Isham Indi Varashyamo Hridasto Janardanna Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Om Gandham Samarpayami Shri Hanumate Namaha Om Pavanatane Sankata Haranam Mangalamurati Rupa Ramalakana Sita Saita Hridaya Basasura Bhupa Siyavara Ramachanda Ki Jai Pavana Sutta Hanuman Ki Jai Om Dhupam Samarpayami Shri Hanumate Namaha Om Om Atulita Baladhamam Him Shailabadeham Danujavan Krishanum Gyani Namagraganyam Sakala Guna Nidhanam Vanaranamadesham Raghupati Priyabhaktam Vatajatam Namami Om Shri Hanumate Namaha Om Deepam Samarpayami Shri Hanumate Namaha Om Manojavang Maruttatulya Vegang Jitendriyang Buddhimatang Varishtam Vatatmajam Vanadiyuttamukyam Shri Ramadutam Shirasa Namami Ulang Yasindho Ulang Yasindho Salilam Salilam Yah Shokka Vahinam Janakatmajaya Adayate Naiva Dadahalanka Namamitam Pranjaliranjanayam Om 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 Shri Hanumate Namaha Jai 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 Shri Hanumanji Ki Jai Pavana Sutta Hanuman Ki Jai Umapati Mahadev Ki Jai Ramapati Ramachandra Ki Jai Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Om Gananam Tva Ganapati Gung Avamahe Priyanam Tva Priyapati Gung Avamahe Nidhinam Tva Nidhipati Gung Avamahe Asumama Aham Jani Garbhadham Atmamajasi Garbhadham Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Om Shri Gurave Namaha Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Reva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Om Jai 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 Shri Gurave Namaha Om Shri Sita Ramaya Namaha Om Ramaya Rambhadraya Ramachandraya Vedase Raghunathaya Nathaya Sitaya Pataye Namaha Om Ramaya Rambhadraya Ramachandraya Vedase Raghunathaya Nathaya Sitaya Pataye Namaha Om Ramaya Rambhadraya Ramachandraya Vedase Raghunathaya Nathaya Sitaya Pataye Namaha Om Ramaya Rambhadraya Ramachandraya Vedase Raghunathaya Nathaya Sitaya Pataye Namaha Om Ramaya Rambhadraya Ramachandraya Vedase Raghunathaya Nathaya Sitaya Pataye Namaha Om Ramaya Rambhadraya Ramachandraya Vedase Raghunathaya Nathaya Sitaya Pataye Namaha Om Shri Sita Ramaya Namaha Om Anjaneyaya Vidmahe Mahabalaya Dhimahi Tanno Hanuman Prachodayat
Om Anjaneyaya Vidmahe Mahabalaya Dhimahi Tanno Hanuman Prachodayat. Om Anjaneyaya Vidmahe Mahabalaya Dhimahi Tanno Hanuman Prachodayat. Om Anjaneyaya Vidmahe Mahabalaya Dhimahi Tanno Hanuman Prachodayat. Om Shri Hanumate Namaha. Om Jai 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 Shri Hanuman Ji Ki Jai. Om Om Pushpam Samarpayami Shri Hanumate Namaha. Om Pavanatane Sankataharana Mangalamurati Rupa Ramalakana Sita Sayata Hridaya Sura Bhupa Siyavara Ramachandra Ki Jai, Pavana Sutta Hanuman Ki Jai, Umapati Mahadeva Ki Jai, Ramapati Ramachandra Ki, Sab Santon Ki Jai, Sab Bhakton Ki Jai, Sab Gurudev Om Ki Jai. Om Shri Hanumate Namaha. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Ganganapataye Namaha. Om Ganganapataye Namaha. Om Ganganapataye Namaha. Om Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Namami Shamishana Nirvana Rupam Vibhum Vyapakam Brahmadeva Swarupam Acham Nirgunam Nirvikalpam Niriham Chidakaram Akashavasam Bhajeham. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Shantakaram Bhujagashayana Padmanabham Sudesham Vishwadharam Gagana Sadrisham Meghavarnam Shubhangam Lakshmi Kantam Kamalanayanam Yoga Birdhyana Gamyam Vande Vishnu Bhavabhayaram Sarvalokaikanatam. Om Shri Sitaramaya Namaha. Shri Hanumate Namaha. Om Shri Hanumate Namaha. Jai Hanuman Ji Ki Jai. Om Naivedyam Samarpayami Shri Hanumate Namaha. Om Pranay Swaha, Apanay Swaha, Vyanay Swaha, Udanay Swaha, Samanay Swaha. Om Shri Hanumate Namaha. Om Jalam Samarpayami Shri Hanumate Namaha. Om Shri Hanumate.
हनुमान लला की, दुष्ट दल नर रघुनाथ कला की। आरती की जय हनुमान लला की, दुष्ट दल नर रघुनाथ कला की। आरती की जय हनुमान लला की। जाके बल से गिरिवर कांपे, जाके बल से गिरिवर कांपे। रोग दोष जके निकट न जांगे, रोग दोष जके निकट न जांगे। अंजनी पुत्र महाबल दाई, संतन के प्रभु सदा सहाई। आरती की जय हनुमान लला की, दुष्ट दल नर रघुनाथ कला की। आरती की जय हनुमान लला की। देवीरा रघुनाथ पठाए, देवीरा रघुनाथ पठाए। लंका जारी सिया सुदिलाए, लंका जारी सिया सुदिलाए। लंका सोकोट समुद्र सिकाई, रत पवन सुत बारन लाई। आरती की जय हनुमान लला की, दुष्ट दल नर रघुनाथ कला की। आरती की जय हनुमान लला की। लंका जारी असुर सब मारे, लंका जारी असुर सब मारे। सीताराम जी के काज संभाले, सीताराम जी के काज संभाले। लक्ष्मण मुरली परे धरणी में, आन संजीवन प्राण उबारे। आरती की जय हनुमान लला की, दुष्ट दल नर रघुनाथ कला की। आरती की जय हनुमान लला की। पैटी बताल तोरियम कातर, पैटी बताल तोरियम कातर। आही रावण के भुजा उकारे, आही रावण के भुजा उकारे। नयन भुजा सुर संहारे, नयन भुजा सब संत उबारे। आरती की जय हनुमान लला की, दुष्ट दल नर रघुनाथ कला की। आरती की जय हनुमान लला की। सुर नर मुनि जन आरती उतारे, सुर नर मुनि जन आरती उतारे। जय 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 हनुमान जी उचारे, जय 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 हनुमान जी उचारे। कंचन तारक कपूर की बाटी, आरती करता अंजनी माई। आरती की जय हनुमान लला की, दुष्ट दल नर रघुनाथ कला की। आरती की जय हनुमान लला की। जो हनुमान जी की आरती गावे, जो हनुमान जी की आरती गावे। बसी बैकुंठ अमर पद पावे, बसी बैकुंठ अमर पद पावे। जो हनुमान जी की आरती गावे, जो हनुमान जी की आरती गावे। बस Masi Vaikunta Marapada Pame Masi Vaikunta Marapada Pame Arati ki jai Hanuman lala ki Dushadana Raghunatha kala ki Arati ki jai Hanuman lala ki Dushadana Raghunatha kala ki Arati ki jai Hanuman lala ki Jai
Pavan Sutta Hanuman ki
Jai
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 Sitaram
Om Triyambakam Yajamai Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvadukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyamamritat Om Triyambakam Yajamai Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvadukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyamamritat Om Triyambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyamamritat Om Shanti 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 Jai Shiva Shambho Jai Shri Mata Jai 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 Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Jai 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 Shri Sitaramaya Namaha Jai Shri Mata Jai 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 Mahadevaya Namaha Jai Shri Mata Om Uchrai Smastai Stu Yanmayati Janam Kritam Tatsarva Purnisanyati Hi Aparadham Shamaswami Jai 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 Shri Hanuman Ji Ki Jai Pavan Sutta Hanuman Ki Jai
Bala samay ravi bakshili yotavati nahuloka payo andiyaro tahi sutra sabayo jaga koya sangata kahu sojatana taro devana anikari vinati taba chamridi ravi kashta nivaru Nahi janata hai jaga mem kapi Sankat Mochan Hanuman Temple Bali ki trasa kapi shava saigiri jata Mahaprabhu pandani haro Changi Mahamuni sapati yotava chahiya kauna vichara vicharo Kaidvijaru Balivaya Mahaprabhu Sotama Dasa Keshoka Nivano Nahi Janata Hai Jaga Mem Kapi Sankat Mochan Hanuman Temple Angara ki sangale naga yesiya ko jaga pisaya bena ucharo jivana तट सिंधु समेत बलाय सिया स्तुति प्राण उपानो नहीं जानत है जग में कपि संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो रावण त्रासदाई सिया को सब राक्षसी संकहि शोक निवारो ताई समय हनुमान महाप्रभु जय महाराज निशर मारो चाहत सिया शोक सो आगे सो तै प्रभु मुद्रिक शोक निवारो कौन नहीं जानता है जग में कपि संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो बाण लग्यो लक्ष्मण के तव प्राण तजे सुत रावण मारो नय गृह वैद्य सुषेण समेत भय द्रोण सुवीर उबारो आनि संजीवन हाथ दई तब लक्ष्मण के तुम प्राण उबारो कौन नहीं जानत है जग में कपि संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो रावण जुत जानकी तब नाग के पंस सबै सिर धारो श्री रघुनाथ समेत सबै दर मोह भयो यह संकट बारो आनिक गेट तबै हनुमान जो बंधन काटि सूत्र निवारो कौन नहीं जानत है जग में कपि संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो बंधु समेत जय रावण लाई रघुनाथ पताल सीतारो देवी पूजी बलि विधि सोमबलि देयु सबै मंत्र विचारो जय सहाय भयो तबै आहि रावण सैन्य समेत संहारो कौन नहीं जानत है जग में कपि संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो काज किए वर देवन के तुम वीर महाप्रभु देखी विचारो कौन सो संकट मोर गरीब को जो तुम सो नहीं जाता है तारो देगी हरो हनुमान महाप्रभु जो कछु संकट होया हमारो वो नहीं जानता है जग में कपि संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो हाल देह लानिलसे अरुतरि लालंगूर पट्न देह दान बदलन जय 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 कपीसोन जय गुरु चरण सरोजन निज मन मुकुर सुधार वरनो रघुबर बिमल जसो जो दायक परचार बुद्धिहीन तनु जानिके सुमिरो पवन कुमार बल बुद्धि विद्या देहु मोहि हरहु गणेश विकार जय हनुमान ज्ञान गुण सागर जय कपी Shati Uloga Ujaya Namadurga Tulita Banatama Anjani Putra Pavana Sukhanama Mahavira Vikrama Vajarangi Kumati Nivara Sumati Ke Sangi Kanchana Barana Viraja Sumesa Kanana Kundana Kunjita Kesa Hata Bhadra Oda Javiraji Gande Munya Jane Usaje Sangara Subhana Keshani Nandana Teja Pratapa Mahajagabanda Divyavana Guniya Kichatura Ramakaja Karideko Atura Prabhu Charitra Suniveko Rasiya Rama Lakana Sita Manabasiya Sushma Rupa Dharisiya Hindikava Nikata Rupa Dharilanka Jarava Bhima Rupa Dhari Asura Samhare Ramachandra Kiritaja Savare Laya Sajivana Lakana Jiyaye Shri Raghuvira Hara Shivuralaye Raghupati Kini Bahuta Barai Tuma Mama Priya Bharatai Samapai Sahasrara Tumaro Yasakave Asakahi Shri Bhakti Kanta Lagave Sanakadaka Brahmani Munisa Narada Sharata Savita Hisa Yamagopera Kapala Jahante Kaviko Vida Kahisa Kai Kahante Tuma Upakara Sugriva Hikina Rama Milaya Raja Padatina Tumaro Mantra Vibhishana Mana Lankeshwara Bhai Sabha Jagajana Yuga Sahasra Yojana Parabhanu Diyotai Madhura Palajanu Prabhu Mudrika Meri Mukamai Janadilangi Kai Achara Janai Durgama Kaja Jagata Gejete Sukhamanu Raha Tumare Tete Rama Duare Tumara Kavare Hotananya Pino Paisare Sabha Sukala He Tumari Sharana Tumara Shaka Kahu Kotarana Apana Teja Samaro Ape Dino Lokam Pratikate Buddha Pisajani Katana Ilave Mahavira Jabanama Sunave Nase Roga Hare Sabapira Japat Nirantara Hanumadavira Sankatate Hanumana Churave Manakrama Vachana Dhyana Cholave Sabapala Rama Tapasvi Raja Dinake Kaja Sakala Tumasaja Ora Manorata Joko Hilave Soyamita Jivana Palapave Charo Yuga Padapa Tumara Ye Parasida Jakata Ujiyana Sadhu Sandage Tumara Kavale Tikandana Rama Junare Ashta Siddhi Navanidhi Kedata Asabharadina Janaki Mata Rama Rasayana Tumare Pasa Sataraho Raghupati Kedasa Tumare Bhajana Rama Gopava Janama Janama Ke Dukha Visarave Antakala Raghupati Purachari Jahan Janma Hari Bhakta Kahari Ora Deva Chittana Tarai Hanumat Sei Sarva Sukha Karai Sankata Kate Nite Sabapira Josmire Hanumat Balavira Jai 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 Hanuman Gosai तुलसीदा सजा हरि चेरा कीजे नाथ हृदय मोहनेरा अनतय संकट हरण मंगल मूर्ति रूप राम लखन सीता सहित हृदय संसुरभूप श्यामल रामचंद्र की जय पवन सुत हनुमान की जय उमापति महादेव की जय रमापति रामचंद्र की जय सब संतों की जय सब भक्तों की जय सब गुरुदेवों की जय 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 सीताराम चिदाकारो दाता परम सुखदा पावनतनु मुनीन्द्र योगीन्द्र यतिपति सुरेन्द्र हनुमता सदा सैन्य पूर्णो जनकतनयङ्गा सुरगुरु रमानाथो रामो रमतु मम चित्ते सततं मुकुन्दो गोविन्दो जनकतनया नादितपदं परं प्राप्ताय स्यामगुणमवाचापि शबरि विरादितो गम्यो विमनविषमेर्वेद वचसां रमानाथो रामो रमतु मम चित्ते सततं नराधीशो दिशासुरनरवराणां रघुपति किरीटिकेयूरी कनककविशोभितबभूत् समासीन पीठे रविशतनिवेशान्तमनसो रमानाथो रामो रमतु मम चित्ते सततं वरेण्यशरण्य कपिपतिसकर्षान्तविदुरो ललाटे काश्मीरो रुचिरगणिभङ्गा शशिमुखा नरागारो रामो यतिपतितनु संसृतिहरो रमानाथो रामो रमतु मम चित्ते सततं विरूपाक्षकश्यामुपदिशति नाम शिवदं सहस्रं यन्नाम्ना पठति गिरिजाप्रतिशशिवै स्वलोके गायन्ति स्वरविधिमुखायस्य चरितं रमानाथो रामो रमतु मम चित्ते सततं परोधीरो धीरो सुरकुलभवश्च सुरहरं परात्मा सर्वज्ञो नरसुरगणो गीतसुयशः आहल्याशापग्नं शरकरणिजुकौशिकसतो रमानाथो रामो रमतु मम चित्ते सततं ऋषिकेशशौरी धरणिधरशायि मधुरिपो उपेन्द्र वैकुण्ठो जरिपुतरस्तुष्टमनसा फलितं शिवीरो दशरथसुतो नीतिनिपुनो रमानाथो रामो
Jai Mantra as our closing practice. I want to just mention one of our satsang brothers who died in the fires in California the other day. He actually died on the first night that the fires broke out. He lived up in Last Chance Road, and it was a man who had been with Babaji for many, many years, well before Mount Madonna Center, and was known to many of us. He lived with myself and some others in a house up not far from Babaji's over 40 years ago. And he was as eccentric then as he was at the end of his life. And there was a beautiful article just written about him in the New York Times, actually. He's very much the hermit, ascetic type yogi. And his name was Tad. So I want to just think of him today as we do this mantra. This would be the day, the 13th day, where a shraddha would be done for him normally within our satsang. So it was fitting in a sense that here on the full moon day we're getting ready to honor Babaji, and we can just keep Tad among all our other loved ones. Many of us have friends, family who are suffering, have perhaps died, lost homes, lost properties to the outrageous fires throughout the state and other calamities around the country or around the world from COVID-19, a very, very radical time. So we do this mantra always trying to honor all of those and offer prayers for healing from any malady, whether a physical, emotional, or spiritual. So, and it's especially been accelerating, it seems, these days. So I want to bring Tad into at least my awareness and the awareness of many in our satsang as we chant it tonight also, and pray that he's liberated from his karmas as best as can be. He finished his work for this life, that's for certain. So we'll go in and do 11 repetitions now. Mahamrityunjaya mantra.
यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात् स्वः भुवः भूं सः पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात् स्वः भुवः भूं सः उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात् स्वः भुवः भूं सः पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात् स्वः भुवः भूं सः पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात् स्वः भुवः भूं सः
So just to say the Tilak mantra for blessings for any of you who are still with us this time. And I'll do the whole sequence of the prayers, the Swasti Vachan for blessings. Om Gananantva Ganapati Gung Avamahe Priyanantva Priyapati Gung Avamahe Nidhinantva Nidhipati Gung Avamahe Vaso Mamma Aham Jani Garbadham Atmamajasi Garbadham Om Swastina Indro Bridhashavaha Swastina Pusha Vishwavedaha Swastina Staraksho Arishtanemihi Swastino Brihaspati Dadatu Om Payah Pritibhyam Paya Oshadishu Payo Devyanta Rikshan Payodah Payasvatihi pradisha santumayam. Om Vishnu Raratramasi Vishnu Shnaptresto Vishnu Syurasi Vishnu Devosi Vaishnavamasi Vishnavetva. Om Agnir Devata Vato Devata Surya Devata Chandrama Devata Vasavo Devata Rudro Devata Aditya Devata Marto Devata. Om Vishwani Deva Savitar Duritani Parasuva Yadbadram Tanna Asuva. Om Tat Sat Gurave Swaha. Jai Sitaram. Thank you for joining us. See you tomorrow. Jai Hanuman.